You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver. Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Lewis O'Connor. Lewis, how are you, buddy?
Very well, thank you, Jim. I'm happy to be here.
I love the accent, and I talk a little bit about going to Ireland and playing in a member guest with a buddy of mine, Rich Spencer, who's an international member at Lahinch. And a couple of things that I noticed about Ireland that before we get started, and I guess I should say that Lewis is from Ireland, but maybe the accent gave it away that he's not from Mississippi. But I love that I'd say, oh, hey, where are you from? And they'd say, oh, like 3 miles that way. People, they're from there. They stay there. They know everybody in town. It's cool. I grew up in Los Angeles, so I didn't have that kind of experience. And I really like that people and the people in Ireland are just amazing and super friendly and like, hey, we're playing golf. Yeah, come play with us. We just had a great time, and I can't wait to go back. And my buddy Rich goes at least once a year, maybe 2 times a year. So,
well, I know Lahinch. It's funny you mentioned Lahinch. It's only about an hour and 15 minutes from me here, and I go there quite often for sea swimming as well. Obviously it's the Atlantic coast, so lovely spot. Yeah, beautiful location.
Okay, so that's something else I noticed is it was colder, right? And I don't remember what month. I think it was maybe in June or July. But the water, I can't remember the temperature, but there's 80-year-old ladies out there in that water. And I'm like, these guys are tough, man.
Yeah. They swim every day, It's great, though. I mean, but yeah, right now, summer, it's about 10 degrees, 12 degrees, the water, but it drops down to 4 or 5 in the winter, and it's cold. It's always cold, actually. But you get a great physically, mentally, spiritually. It's you always feel great after it.
I would bet in Lahinch there's not a lot of cold plunges being sold. The cold blood plunge tanks, because you got the ocean right there. And I love that, by the way, because you know what, your body adjusts to it. You're after a while you're used to it. You're used to it's fine. That it's invigorating, so
it is.
I'm all about doing whatever we can do to be happy and healthy and wealthy. And we're going to talk about kind of something that I haven't had anybody talk about on this show. We're going to talk about strategic metals. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you got involved with strategic metals.
Okay, good stuff. So I'm in Tipperary in Ireland at the moment. I'm originally from Dublin, but I'm well traveled. I lived we'll be talking about Germany in a little bit, but I lived in Germany for 10 years. I also lived in the Americas, but not North America. I was in Central America for about altogether like 20 years. And then I recently, meaning 5 years ago, came back to Europe, to Ireland, specifically to work with strategic metals. How I came across them really actually was I went to this conference in America, which was always on in Las Vegas, called the Freedom Fest. It's a sort of you could say a libertarian type event, but it's a great place to hear about new sort of relatively new asset classes, alternative assets. And so it was here that I heard about rare earths and strategic metals, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But it's funny, Jim, that we're speaking this week, because in just last week, the Chinese and the US met in London, and they were talking about strategic metals. They are the backbone of manufacturing in the 21st century. They're needed for all nations' economic prosperity as well as military capabilities. But we'll talk about them in a bit more detail. But basically what we've done is we've created a marketplace where private investors can own them and profit from owning the raw materials that every country needs.
I love that. And I think sometimes people will ask me, in fact, in the last week, that 2 people come to me and say, Jim, I just don't know what to invest in. I'm being my own banker. I'm controlling the banking function in my life. And and that's libertarian in practice as well. But I don't know what to put the money in. Do I just go buy multifamily real estate? Do I go buy businesses? If it's businesses, what businesses do I buy? And the answer to all those things are yes. I mean, the richest man in Babylon, he says, invest in what you know. But then Dan Sullivan says it's who, not how. So if you don't know what to invest in, find somebody that you're in alignment with and that you get to know, you like, and then do it passively, because we do have a lot of people that are doctors or attorneys and they're working 60 hours a week and they don't have time to study and learn about rare earth metals or strategic metals, or they don't have time for that. So like that's one of the purposes of the show, and to have you on, Lewis, is to tell people, okay, let's just start with the very basics. What exactly are rare earth metals?
Okay, so let me use the word strategic metals, because rare
Yes,
earths
I'm sorry.
are
Yes.
strategic. And to give you, like, I'm going to use North America as a good example here. So the US Geological Survey lists about 45 to 50 metals as strategic to the US's economic prosperity and military capabilities. Now, the first thing people should know about us is, and this is not what we'll be talking about today, but it is important. So our core business, like 85% of our business activities are, we're buying these metals from producers, mostly in China, but also other areas, and then we resell them to manufacturers. We've more than 4,000 clients in 74 different countries. So we're embedded in the industry. Now, the reason I mention that is so important is because what I'm about to talk about with you, Jim, is what you guys in America might call our side hustle, our side business. But what that is we also invite private investors to own these assets and benefit and profit from owning them. Now, what are they exactly? So, out of that 45 that are listed on the US Geological Survey, we sell all of them, or pretty much all of them, to manufacturers. However, there's only about 8 or 10 that we offer to private investors that we deem relevant as a physical asset. And I can tell you more in detail what sort of helps them, the characteristics that determine why they get on the list. So we're talking about strategic metals, but we're talking about a little subtext as well of the ones that are relevant to private investors. Those are the ones we'll be talking about today.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, again, I love things that are different. I love that this kind of the way that life happens is you're going along doing something, you go to a conference, you learn about this, develop a passion. It's the same thing that I did, Lewis. I was a financial planner. I had a lot of money under management, and I'm like, wait a minute, all my clients, that's not how they got wealthy. They didn't get wealthy in mutual funds and Wall Street and wrap accounts. How did they get wealthy? And I just studied it, and I found out that it was one guy was investing in oil fields, one guy, but it came around real estate and businesses, and it was all alternative investments is how they got wealthy, not putting my money in a mutual fund and forgetting it's there for 20 years. That is not how to get wealthy. And so so when we say strategic metals, how's that different than precious metals?
Okay. Yeah, no, it's funny just what you were saying there, Jim, as well. I agree. Like, we always live in an age of where there's what's coming, what's around the corner, what's coming next. I mean, the big tech companies of today, most of them didn't exist 25 years ago, right? So
Yeah.
so this is one of these relatively new asset classes that people will be hearing more and more about in the future. I'll just give you an example. For example, um, technology metals, rare earths, they're all strategic. And one good example, I've got my smartphone here, right? Indium is one of them. You can only swipe your phone because of indium. Now, how many millions
Oh,
or billions of people touch indium every day and not realize, wow, what is that exactly? And can I own it and can I profit from owning it? Now, there's probably 12 or 13 metals in every smartphone. There's 12 or 13 semiconductors. And since 2018, we're in a sort of a technology war, trade war with China. In fact, somebody over here recently said we're in a Cold War 2.0, and it's not an arms race; it's a semiconductor race. That's 100% true. I mean, as we speak, just last week, China and the US sat for 2 days, and that discussion in London was all about rare earths because
Mm.
unfortunately, China has an unrivaled dominance. But investors can profit from this. So these are the what you might call the upstream raw materials that become trillions of dollars in downstream GDP. And another thing to think about is what are the big drivers? Where is the big demand coming? Okay, well, artificial AI is a big driver at the moment. Now, AI runs on data, but it relies on rare earths for the magnets, the sensors, the computer chips, that run the servers. Robotics is another area. So as the world pivots, if you will, from oil to metals, rare earths are the new front line in geopolitical decisions. In fact, I would say as well that demand is not only rising, but demand is being sort of institutionalized by natural interest, by national interest. There's strategic stockpiling. So it's a very exciting sort of asset class that up to now has largely been ignored by institutional money and private investors. But like, make no mistake, I would say, Jim, in the last 90 days, I've never heard as many heads of state, President Trump, Macron in France, the Prime Minister from Canada. President Trump talks about rare earth minerals in Ukraine. He's talking about resources in Greenland. They're talking about rare earths. They are critical to the nation's economic prosperity. And again, as I said, our core business is where we buy and sell these metals, but we also invite private investors to participate safely in the supply chain.
So I want to talk about that in a second because I want to get people to understand what you're talking about and then how they can get involved and what they could expect and like how they engage with you to see if it's a good match and all of that. And I love that you kind of answered one of my questions, which is what does the next 10 years or so look like? And you answered that it's only going up. You mentioned something like when I have a business partner that was with Gateway Computers way back in the day, and he really started the account with NVIDIA. NVIDIA kind of wouldn't exist without Gateway Computers because they use their stuff instead of what was their rival, Intel or whoever it was.
Yeah.
And not Intel, whatever the other graphics card is. And Gateway really started them and said, okay, well, we'll use your stuff. But if anybody knows about a memory card, you have precious metals in that memory card, right? And what is it that it's made of? Anyway,
Yeah, gallium and germanium.
Yeah. So and so I think of that, and then I have a friend who his company has 3,000 employees in China, and they do magnets, and it's part of what's necessary for EV cars, right? For engines.
Yeah.
And that thing's only growing, like it's going bigger and bigger and bigger. It might have 4,000 employees now. I don't know. But
yes.
My point is that you see people like that and you think NVIDIA, obviously, you see this company, 3,000, 4,000 employees in China, guys killing it, right? This whole family is. And you think, well, gosh, I want to be part of that, right? I want to be part of that wave that's only getting bigger. It's a market, right? Like Wayne Gretzky said, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck's going.
Yes.
And so with all of that, how does somebody as a private investor get started, or how do they find out about you? How could they participate? What have you seen? Maybe a success story in there, Lewis? I guess I'll stop there.
Yeah. So it's the same paradigm as owning gold or silver. So our private investors physically own the assets. And the play is very simple. Like I said, we have a logistics and distribution platform in Europe. I mean, I'm in Ireland, but our main office is in Frankfurt in Germany. We've 45 to 50 people there. And when clients buy from us, they can store them as well with us. We've evolved a storage facility in Frankfurt. And when they're ready to sell, they then have access to our more than 4,000 industry clients in 74 different countries. So it's just no different than somebody maybe going online and purchasing, gold or silver and storing it in Switzerland or Singapore or even in the US. but you do physically own the asset. I'll give you some examples as where people really benefit with rare earths is when we have a scarcity driven price increase. And I'll
Mm.
give you just three quick examples. Terbium is used in semiconductors. When we went into lockdown during COVID, there was a massive increase in demand, for people working from home. So laptops and anything associated with working from home. So the demand for terbium went up about 500% in 3 years.
Wow.
And now then that sort of corrected itself once we came out of that. But then when we came out of lockdown, another metal, hafnium, which is a super alloy in jet engines and rods for nuclear reactors and rocket engines, Boeing, Airbus started to put in orders again when the aviation industry came back, went up something like 250% in 18 months. So we have these what we call scarcity driven price increases, and that's where the private investors can really benefit. Just this last month, on April the 4th, when the US announced the tariffs, China came back and retaliation, they also announced tariffs, but also what maybe a lot of people didn't notice, they also said, oh, by the way, we're going to restrict the export of 7 rare earths. And since
Oh.
that date in April, none of these rare earths have left China. That's why there was talks in London last week. In fact, the CEO of Ford Motor Company said yesterday, I believe, that they've had to shut down some production because they don't have the rare earths. Most manufacturers only have about 3 or 4 months supply, and China has an unrivaled sort of a domination. So it's a real. I mean, there's geopolitical decisions involved. There's strategic stockpiling. There's security. There's some real issues here that where investors can profit.
So let's say I have 100,000, a million, whatever it is that I've got in. Say I have it in my infinite banking policy. I'm going to take a loan from the insurance company while my money stays in there and grows tax free, and I'm going to go and I'm going to invest with you guys. Talk to me about how that process works. How do you decide what I'm going to invest in? Is that something that I decide, you decide, we decide together? Is there different portfolios? Kind of get in those weeds a little bit.
Yeah, so we invite private investors to sort of, if they go to our website, there's a great education there. Each metal is listed, and there's applications and where the production is and stuff. But yeah, we educate people ourselves first, and we want people to get educated first of all. It's a new asset class. People do need to learn what the applications are. But we've lots of podcasts up there, lots of videos. We've a daily news briefing. So it's quite a quick study. Actually, it's purely supply and demand driven. Um, and we make sure people are fully, we'll help if, but you see a lot of people though as well now quite quickly learn it, and they realize, oh, AI, what metals are needed in AI, that's the industry like I'd like to focus on. But what we tend to do, Jim, is say to people, look, one of the I'll tell you the four characteristics of what makes these metals successful. The first one is we look at the ones that offer the most diversification. So, for example, rather than, like, people are happy to invest, let's say, in Tesla and Apple, right? But so why not invest in the raw materials that Tesla need, that Apple need? So gallium would be one example. It's way upstream in the value chain, but you're investing in a raw material that literally every technology company in the world needs. So you've got diversification across the board there. Then the other characteristics are we look for demand. What is the most in demand at the moment, and what will be the most in demand for the next 5 or 10 years? Robotics, artificial intelligence, electric cars, solar, wind turbine, defense metals. So again, they would get on the list. We look at the ones that are the least produced. Some of them, like hafnium, there's only 70 to 90 tons of hafnium produced a year, which means you could fit that on the back of a small truck. And then finally,
Wow.
we look at where is there a sort of a supply concentration risk? Where is there heavily localized production? Gallium, I gave you an example of earlier, 98% of the world's gallium is coming from China. And Europe and the US, unfortunately, were dependent on China for that. And China is now weaponizing rare earths, as they just did in the trade talks last week. So that's sort of a brief sort of introduction to what our recommendations are.
So I love that, Lewis. Like, so I love on your website, which is very well done, by the way. It's very clean, tells you exactly right up front what you're looking for. There's lots of audience because you're not looking at it like I looked at it earlier. But there's you can download brochures. There's education. There's all this free stuff. And what I tell everyone, whether we're talking about multifamily, mobile home parks, businesses, whatever it is, go on the website, check it out. You got to do some due diligence. Read the brochure, and watch some of the videos, and then reach out and see if this is right for you. And I love this too because I love talking to people that have a lot of money to invest, but I also love talking to people that are just getting started in their 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a minimum purchase of $10,000, which is honestly, that's great for that young person that says, can you imagine, Lewis, like back when I'm 60. So when I was 23 or 28 or something, if I would have taken 10 grand and put it into something like this, how much money I would have from that 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
And what I love is, I love people being able to get in. So now nobody has an excuse. Well,
Yeah.
I don't have $1 million. I don't have $100,000. Okay, great, 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that, and I love how it's very direct. I would encourage everyone listening, go check out the website, learn a little bit, and then reach out when you feel comfortable. Like, hey, I got enough information. I've got questions. When I do something like this, I read it, I write down questions so that when I engage, I have all these questions. And with 25 years plus experience and 116% return, again, we're not guaranteeing any rates of return or anything like that. But since 2020, it's up 116%. Now, that's what you need to know that you should check into this and find out a little bit about it. All right, Lewis. Yep. So I think that's the show is typically kind of to get people to take action, go check it out. So I think we've done that. So let me move into another phase here. Is, throughout your success, and I love people that have a different perspective. I mean, like, I've been to Europe a bunch of times, but I've never lived there, never been to Central America, I've never been to Germany. And so, like, I love that you have this background. Through all your travels, what's the best advice anybody's ever given you?
I would say it's a little bit of a play on a wording, which is, somebody said to me one time, don't just do something, sit there. And I went, oh, didn't you mean to say, don't just sit there, do something? He said, no. And the way it was explained to me, and this was actually a business teacher, he said, between sort of stimulus and response, we always have this opportunity to decide how we're going to have what attitude we're going to have to a certain situation, or what action we're going to take, or are we going to react, or are we going to respond? And he just said, try and always find a pause before you do something. Like he said, don't just do something. Sit there, meaning, think things through properly before you move ahead. And I've never forgotten that.
What I love about that is, I'm going to give away like one of my passions, which is golf. Is when you get to the top of your backswing, just sit there for just a second. It's because the worst thing that you can do in golf is hurry the downswing, right? Yeah. And so I love that you said that, because there's a lot of things in life that it's like you said, respond. Think about your response. Sit there, devise a response instead of just reacting. I think that probably goes well in marriages as well. So I love that. Love that advice. All right, Lewis, last question. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
That would be Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Love it. Love that book. Tell everybody, like, what's the messages in that book that resonate with you so much?
Well, I think it's one of there's books that generally there's one great key takeaway, but the thing about Viktor Frankl's book to me is there's so much in it. There's not just one. There's ultimately But there is that what we were just talking about as well, which is that the last of the human. He talks about the last of the human freedoms is that if everything is taken away from you, which it was in this case, you still always have the freedom or the power to choose your response or your attitude in any given circumstances. So it always reminds me that no matter how bad I might think things are or things appear to be, that I always have the power to choose my response.
I love that because, there's a couple of things. When I read that book, I first read it when I was in my 20s, and I don't think it hit me as hard as it did later in life when I read it again and again. But when he talks about the people that survived had a vision and believed they could envision their future, and that somebody couldn't take that away. They could take away his freedom. They could take away his clothes. They could take away his food.
Yeah.
They could take away all these things, but they couldn't take away where his mind could go.
Yes.
And I grew up very poor, and it made me realize I can be anything I want to be. Nobody can take that away from me. Yes. Right. And so that having thought and having response, like you said, and having, and in today's world, we live in an incredible environment. You could learn to do anything you want to for free.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so limitless. And so I love that. And I come back to audience is who, not how, right? You don't have 25 years typically to become an expert in this, but you can hack Lewis's 25 years experience, their trial and error, and for a very modest investment minimum. And I'm sure they'll take $1 million, 10 million, whatever you got, but get in and learn about this, because this is not what the herd is doing. This is not what the 401k holder, the qualified plan, mutual funds, let's sit and hold for 20, 30, 40 years and hope your money goes up while Wall Street makes a really nice living off of you. That's not what this is. Mm-hmm. And so, Lewis, thank you so much for being on the show. I, again, encourage everyone to go check out. Tell us your website again. I didn't hold it there.
www.strategicmetalsinvest.com.
Okay, perfect. And there's lots of stuff on there, audience. Like I said, it's a very good, it's very well done website. It's very clean. Lots of great free stuff on there. Go on there. Lewis, thank you so much. Audience, we're going to wrap this up like we always do with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret. Whatever you think about, you'll become.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.